Watch what's approaching, the supreme moment. Reality striking closer than it seems, don't it? Go ahead, it's for the taking if you want it. If not, the dream dies and you'll be forever haunted. Then confront it.
What's good, everyone? Hopefully you guys are doing pretty well. I think the response was overwhelmingly positive for the LR detailed expectations for the New Year Step Up banner coming up in 2021. So a lot of requests coming in for the category lead coverage as well. So this is pretty much what we'll be covering right here. I actually forgot to do this for a week, but I did throw in like pop quizzes, and the correct answer for the last one was the question of which LR is Social Fire continuously still chasing. The first one to answer that correctly was Lord Sesshomaru with the comment, definitely physical LR trunks for Social Fire, which is the case. So hoping maybe with the Step Up banner coming out, she might be able to finally pull that unit. If you haven't checked her out, definitely check her content out. She's one of the few females that, covers Dokkan and other games. So if you haven't checked her out, definitely make sure to do that. I think for the pop quiz this time around, I'll make it a little bit more difficult. How about when was the first time The Truth and I did a collab for the very first time? So for whoever gets the correct answer first on that one, I'll feature you on the next upcoming video. Now, back to the original point of covering the category leaders on the Step Up banner. We're going to cover the same format of the LRs, where we'll go through the 19 banner for both JP and Global, and also the 2020 version. So starting off on JP, let's just scroll down and look. This particular year, they actually had to combine just one category lead bucket as kind of a multi-summon setup. So as you can see, we've got units like Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta, the AGL Turles, Full Power Super Saiyan 4 Goku, the Tech Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, Super Saiyan 3 Bardock UI Goku, Angel Golden Frieza, the Strength Jiren, Ultimate Gohan, MVP 17, Future Gohan, Super Vegito, and the Omega Shenron unit. So that is about, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, roughly 13 units. And I believe Global is the same for this particular year. So it should be verbatim the same thing. So same units included. In terms of like the overall list of category leads available. Now, moving on to the 2020 version. This is when things split up a little bit. They actually broke it out by super type category leads and then the extreme type category leads. So again, for JP, we have additional units like Namek Saga Super Saiyan Goku, the transforming Vegeta, Kamikoro, the transforming Trunks, AGL Super Saiyan Gogeta, the Int Kid Goku, transforming Goku, and I think Tech Vegito Blue is also added on here as well. Everybody else should be tacked on from the 2019 list. And then if you go on to the extreme leads, I think previously we really just only had Turles, the Angel Golden Frieza, I think, and Omega Shenron, if I'm not mistaken. Outside of that, there were very few extreme units included that year. So we do have a lot more breakouts of extreme type leads or category leads that include AGL transforming Zamasu, the in Goku Black Tech Hit, physical type Super Saiyan Broly from the Dragon Ball Super movie, Metacooler, transforming Boo, Tech transforming Frieza, the Strength Rose, and then the rest should be the same. So a little bit of a difference. They did decide to split it between super and extreme type leads, which I think is a good decision ultimately, because we have 5 steps here, whereas I think it was initially 4 steps. I guess it is 5 steps. So they had the Extreme Z Awakening units, the super type lead, and then the extreme type lead, and then the category lead. So that's pretty much the format with that. It was 2 rounds in the first year, and then they did bump that up to 3 rounds for the 2020 version. So the question really ultimately comes down to the amount of stones this requires. I don't expect it to increase to 4 total cycles max. My guess is they'll keep it at 3. So again, it does cost like 200 stones per cycle. So you do have to keep in mind these do add up to a pretty large amount of stones needed if you do want to go through the full cycle. Now, if you're, a player that's been around for a while, chances are a lot of these units you don't even need. There might be like a couple that you have to pinpoint, but it's a lot more beneficial to the newer players or players that are lacking, the set category leads and list of LRs. Obviously it's a good way to acquire some. And honestly, my priorities tend to be more toward category leads or Dokkan Fest units versus simply LRs. LRs are great, but you can't really build a team around LRs. You have to build, you do have to have the right, category leads or leaders setups in order to fully maximize your team's performance. So with that being said, let's just go back into the banners themselves and talk about it. So Global's featured list looks a little bit different, but you do have a lot of the key players. I think the ones that are missing are a couple of them. I have a spreadsheet we'll cover here in a second, but this is basically the Global's view of the super type leads, and then you have your extreme type category leads here, where it's pretty much what you would expect, I guess, for that year. All right, so what are the expectations for 2020, right? With that being said, let's go on here. So this is the 2019 list. So you've got a split between, I did break it out between super and extreme type units because it's gonna require that in the 2020 and 2021 expectations. So again, literally the same between both versions, JP and Global, with 13 total units, and that's including both super and extreme type units. Now they did expand this out in 2020, where we do have a lot more units. So this is the cutoff for the super type units from 2019, and these are basically the new units that were added in 2020. So again, you have all your units. The ones missing for Global's part is the Namek Saga Super Saiyan Goku, the Kamikoro unit, and also the Transforming Trunks. Also for the extreme type units, really the only one missing was the AGL Transforming Zamasu unit. Outside of that, it's pretty common and equal between the versions. Now, the thing about this is you can see it went from 13 to 29. It pretty much more than doubled. Super type categories or super type units are 18 in total for JP, 11 for extreme types. You've got 15 for Global with super units, and then 10 for extreme type units. So 4 less for Global versus JP, but it is still 25 total units. Now, let's look at the release schedules on all these units, right? So I did sort it by oldest to newest, and by going through this, we can kind of see a timeline of when the cutoff periods were for each year's step-up banner. So these are up to the point where the units are included up to the 2020 version. So again, JP cuts off at July 30th, 2019 with the Transforming Piccolo unit. Global side is a little bit different. They cut off at June 6, 2019 with the End Kid Goku unit, pretty much like right before the 5-year anniversary for Global side, basically. Alright, so let's review all the units that came out since then, right? So if we take a look here, these are all the new units that came out since, July 30th, 19 for JP, and then June 6th for 19. So we have units like the Int Future Gohan Strength Cooler, Android 13, the year-end transforming units, the Angel Goku and Vegeta, also the physical type Beerus and transforming Bardock that came out on the Saiyan Day for both versions, and then Super Saiyan Blue or Kaioken Blue Goku, and then the transforming Gotenks and Majin Vegeta, as well as the strength transforming Kefla, since the unit did come out on May 29th of 2020, which is well within the cutoff period for the 2021 version of the Step Up banner. Now, I left this a little bit questionable, even though I feel like it will be included because the release date was July 31st, 2020, whereas Piccolo came out on July 30th, 2019. So I think this guy would also be included. I think obviously this would be a pretty big appeal for the banner itself because Tech Ultimate Gohan is a very good unit in terms of the tanking abilities and whatnot. So I think it would definitely promote a lot more activity when it comes to including this guy on the banner for the Step Up coming up. Now switching over to global, right? We do have a couple of units here, like the inclusion of the transforming Trunks and Zamasu unit that were included on JP last year, but were not on the global version. And then we have again the Kaioken Blue Goku unit, the Kamikoro that was on JP but didn't come out early enough for the global version. And then a couple of the shared units within the release that came out during the course of the year, where it falls within the range basically. So you do have units like Future Gohan, Strength Cooler, Bardock, Android 13, the transforming Goku and Vegeta units, and also the Beerus. I think Beerus should also fall into this banner because of the release date of June 8th, 2020, whereas Kid Goku came out last year on June 6th, 2019. So I have a feeling that they will include this guy for Global's version as well. All right, so let's look at what the expectations are for 2021 coming up. So again, these are all the 2019 units. This is the additional super units for 2020. And then we have the new inclusion of units that came out since last year's Step Up banner, basically. And well, not since then, but basically it falls into like the criteria for the cutoff times to include the units. So again, I ultimately think, no pun intended, Ultimate Gohan should be the unit that cuts off for the super type leads. And then for the extreme type leads, it did increase in numbers a little bit. So we do have really only 3 new additional units, like Strength Cooler, Android 13, and the transforming Majin Buu that came out with the Gotenks unit. And then for global, a little bit different, cutting off at the physical type Beerus for the super type leads. And then for the extreme type leads or category leads, we have Android 13 that really is one of the ones that were last to come out for global in terms of like the overall like scheduling of it, based on what I see here, because some of the other ones, like all the ones that came out afterwards, were super type units. Okay, so let's summarize the information here. So super types total of 27 for JP, 23 for global, so 4 less. And then for extreme type leads, you have 14 for JP and then 13 for global. And then that accounts for 41 total units that are featured, and then 36 for global. Now I have it highlighted here, but the question is whether they will eliminate or reduce the amount of featured units, since we're going up from literally 13 in 2019 to 29 in 2020, and then 41 in 2021. Now the difference really is they did split it between the super and extreme types, so I guess in that regard you could look at it that way. But even with that being said, I mean, we went from 18 to 27 for the super type leads in JP, and then 15 to 23 for global, and then barely, not that much change for the extreme type leads. So it's a little bit uneven in terms of how many units are included depending on the type. So again, ultimately 41 units, 36 units, that is a lot of featured units on a list. So again, I guess that you kind of have to look at it from a multi perspective, where it's like 27 and 14 and then 23 and 13. But even with that, I mean, that is a far greater amount of featured units than previous years were. So I think they might potentially think about eliminating some of the older units that were included in since 2019. I feel like it would only be it would only make sense to do that. I don't know if they necessarily will, but I feel like they should. I guess that's pretty much what I'm trying to say here. So ultimately, it would help if they reduce the number of units featured, but I don't necessarily know if they will do that. But in summary, this is pretty much what I expect to see in the 2021 version of the Step Up banner in terms of like the types of units and whatnot. Now, like a lot of these units are beneficial, like from a category lead perspective. If you're lacking a fair amount of these units listed here, just from the Step Up banner, you could come out with a major victory if you end up getting lucky. Now, obviously, RNG is a key factor here, but if you are able to pull a couple of these category unit leads that you don't have, then by far it might be more advantageous to do this than the legendary banner or whatever. Even like the year-end banner with Pai Guhan and Janemba. you know, those guys are going to be pretty nice in terms of like, you know, what they provide and add to your deck. But again, those are just, you know, 2 category leads. We do have other units like the Go Tanks and whatnot, and this is strictly JP conversations. But from that perspective, yes, like it's kind of like you have to decide and kind of ration out how to utilize your stones. Again, these banners aren't cheap. They're 200 per cycle, so if it's, you know, like last year where you can do up to 3, that's that's the equivalent of 600 stones. And you know, sometimes it might be more worthwhile to go into, you know, the new dual Dokkan Fest with that amount of stones versus this. But it's just different ways to look at it, how you know, prioritize banners essentially. So ultimately it comes down to what you want and what you need, and that kind of drives your direction. I guess the best example I can give you is for me, I think last year, instead of going through all 3 cycles, I might have done 2, maybe even 1, because I don't really place that high of an importance on LRs, right? Like, they'll come in eventually, like I'll pick them up eventually with dupes or whatever, right? And I don't really look at it as something I have to get immediately. Like, I place a much more importance on the category leads, and you know, from that perspective, I guess it could potentially be beneficial to pick up a few of these. You know, I pretty much have all these guys, and they're, you know, pretty duped out in the potential system. But for some people that you know, aren't necessarily, you know, they don't have most of these units, it's definitely advantageous. Now, you might only get 1 out of the multi, but you know, it's ultimately luck based. But you know, that's one way to look at it. So without going off too much on a tangent, that's pretty much the you know, information I wanted to cover for this video, similar to how I cover the LR. So hopefully you guys found this helpful. Let me know in the comments what you think, and let's, you know, have another conversation going about it. All right, with that being said, I appreciate you guys watching till the very end. Until next time, I will catch you guys later.